Good morning and welcome to our NBJ Live. We haven't done one of these in a minute, so it's good to be here. We're doing this one's called Herbal Momentum, Trends and Insights in a $13.6 billion market. There you go, first data point already in the title. Um, and I'm here with Erica Kraft, our market research analyst. I'm Content and Insights Director at NBJ. Erica, hi.
Hey Bill, how's it going this morning? I saw you were drinking a tea. Yes? What kind of tea are we
Yes, always
drinking?
tea. It's because you know me, because most people would
I do
probably
know you.
say this is
Yes.
coffee. Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking back to the other day when you told me you had caffeine in the afternoon and it was a tea. And it's just funny. Most people, like I drink cold brew in the morning and I have like two cold brews, but I
Wow.
don't even put like the water in the cold brew. So it's just like straight cold brew concentrate, which is we're very different on our caffeine
Yeah,
intakes. So,
I've been dipping into coffee a bit more, more and
oh,
more. For a long time, I was just a tea guy, and coffee is a
yeah.
fantastic stimulant. Like it's different, even though this is also caffeine. There's something about having a cup of coffee that's just really a powerhouse. So these are probably my two most frequently consumed botanicals. How about you? Would
Mm.
you say
Ooh,
coffee
two
is?
most frequently used botanicals. Yeah, I guess yeah, coffee would probably be one of them. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about my supplement routine and regimen, and I'm embarrassed because I can't even think of all of it because there's so many. I
Right.
feel like that's a problem.
I know I just popped my
Um,
handful right before this. Yeah, there are definitely botanicals in my supplement regimen, but still, that's once a day, and tea is at least twice a day. So here's to Camellia
yeah,
sinensis, my number one. Wait, I cheers and then I didn't drink. Hold on.
yeah, you need to drink. It's bad luck if you don't.
That's right.
Actually, I also do a tea every morning. I combo a detox, the yogi detox tea with lemon ginger, and I put them both together, and
Nice.
it's very good before
And
you
then we get into the
eat.
whole conversation of what's a tea versus a tisane, and
Right.
so those are tea, but they're much more appropriate to this conversation because
Yes.
uh, you're drinking botanicals, you're drinking herbal medicines. Did I say medicine? We can't say that in the supplement industry, but I think we can when we're talking about it, and that's
Yeah.
sort of traditionally speaking, that's where these ingredients came from. So we put out Herbs and Botanicals report. I think it's our third one, maybe over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And that came out, what, maybe in March. So it's out in the marketplace. And we'll show you how to buy that if you want to buy it. We would love that because that's why we do them. We also do them to serve the marketplace, to serve you with some real data about
Yeah.
what's happening in the marketplace. And so, yeah, shall we get into it, Erica? Do you want to
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
let's
And I
talk
think it's
about
cool
some?
that we naturally and organically we're kind of talking about teas, and we'll actually kind of get into some of those data points and some of the survey work that we did.
Oh, right,
So
yeah.
that's kind of funny. I would like to say we did that on purpose, but we didn't. So that's cool.
Right. Tea and coffee
Um,
are sort of the OG functional beverages, right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
there we go.
Well, cool. Well, I'll go ahead and kind of kick us off here with some discussion. As I'm sure everyone can already tell, this is, casual, it's a conversation. We're going to be giving you some insights and some data while we do it. But kind of want to start and kick things off talking about like total supplement industry. So when we're talking about herbs and botanicals today, we are specific. I know we were talking about teas, but we're mostly going to be talking about herb and botanical supplements. So what we like to do is just start off big picture, kind of show you what's going on in the whole industry, and then we'll get into a piece of that industry, which is herbs. So total supplement industry growth reached 5.2% last year in 2024, reaching to about $69 billion, and will be slowly inching up to that low 6% range into 2028. And about 20% of this market is herbs. So that's, of course, what we're here to talk about today. So on the left here is basically a sales and growth bar line chart for the herbs and botanicals market. So as we can see on the left is historical sales, so our actuals, if you will. And then on the right are those gray bars, which are our forecasted sales. So we're estimating that growth in 2024 for the herbal market was 5.4%, which is slightly higher, as we can see from that previous slide, than industry average, which was 5.2%. But it's going to continue to that gap basically of herbal growth to overall supplement industry growth will continue to widen as herbs will actually go closer to about 7% growth, which where I said earlier total supplement will be around 6%.
And I
So
want to clarify something
it's
because it kind of sounded like you said slow 6% growth, but I think you said low 6%.
low. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so it's not
Yeah,
a
thank
it's
you.
not a critique. It's just an up,
Yes.
right? It's like yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll it's interesting as I say that too. 5 and 6% growth was kind of what the industry was doing pre-pandemic. So we're
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
settled back in, haven't we? To
Settled back in, but I mean, we're still kind of around that $3.5 billion larger than we were. So kind of return back to normal, which is great, but we're still much larger, which I think is still, pretty impressive.
yeah,
But but yeah, and so kind of on the right there, what we're showing is, and what the title says, showing that, the category has regained some strength. 2022 was a little bit of a rough year for a lot of categories, but for herbs in particular, saw that market correction. But combination herbs is really, really leading that growth there. So
yeah, and it's interesting, and it's true. Herbs was really the only one that actually had negative growth. The whole market blew up in 2020. I mean, okay, asterisk, sports nutrition had a slightly different
right.
trajectory. But then in 2022, everything plummeted to really low growth. But herbs was the one category. We tracked 6 categories, and herbs and botanicals was the one that went negative. And you can see that in the green bars on the left, right? Up, up, oh, down, up, 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 up.
Mm.
So, but
Oh,
even
did not mean to do that. Sorry.
even so, even so, um, in that, it was still a strong market and still a bigger market than it had been, even with negative growth. It was a
Right.
bigger market than it had been pre-pandemic. So it's interesting. Yeah, and I like what
Yeah.
you're showing there on the right, the combination herbs. I think that speaks a lot to uh, how the market is evolving. I mean, single herbs are still very strong. People know ashwagandha, people know St. John's wort, people know elderberry, people know herbs by their names and function, but more and more, I don't know if it's sophistication in formulation or if it's what's the chicken and what's the egg? Are consumers demanding the sophistication of combination formulas, or and so the market's responding, or is the market creating it and the consumers are saying yes, thank you? But combination herbs are growing a little faster, and you can see those growth lines there on the right, and that gold, if that's gold, whatever color that is, that's combination herbs, and it's just a bit bigger and growing. Or it's well, it's not that it's bigger; it's growing faster than the single herbs, and so we're seeing that separation there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting to see.
And one last thing I wanted to add, we actually just finished a lot of research for our upcoming supplement business report, which is going to be released next week on the 21st. I think that's next week. Yeah. And one of the insights from that was kind of from this report as well, is that herbs is actually going to be, if our estimates are true, in 2028 will be the fastest growing category among the 6 categories that we track. So vitamins, minerals, like you said. So we'll see how it pans out into the future, but it is a category that we believe will have a lot of staying power. So that'll
Yeah,
be.
and it's a category that right now is about 20% of the market. I don't know if that was said
Mhm.
yet, but 20% of the total supplement market is herbs and botanicals. Third
Yeah,
biggest category. It did used to be the second biggest, but it's a powerhouse and it's an
for
important one.
sure. Well, along there, so we'll kind of get into a little bit of ingredients here. So these are single ingredients, like Bill was saying. So kind of what we did here was the top market share chart is on the left. So turmeric holds the highest market share. And when we break out, single ingredients of their top 50 herbs list. And then on the right there is going to be one of the fastest growing ingredients, which of course is mushroom supplements. Again, so this is turmeric supplements, mushroom supplements that we're talking about here. But it's interesting. I mean, you can see that it might look like mushrooms is like declining in growth, but that's just because it was an astronomically high number in 2019. So it looks a little deceiving, but it's still double-digit growth. And turmeric is still increasing as well. It's one of those, powerhouses of the historical herbs market, I would say. Bill, would you agree with that? Like it's just
Yeah,
been
yeah,
around
it
for
is.
so
Right.
long.
That's a good way to put it because turmeric's been a leading herb for a long time, and then CBD came along and became the number one herb for herbs and botanicals ingredient that we track for a while, and ashwagandha kind of came out of nowhere. Um, but turmeric was like, hey, ashwagandha, we know each other from Ayurveda, so and then yeah, but turmeric has just like been steadily at the top.
Yeah. And it's interesting you talk about Ayurveda. So that's been, a topic that we've been talking about a lot, the last year or two, maybe, and just like this increased awareness around Ayurveda, Ayurvedic medicine. And we've kind of theorized on like our consumers, like really, you know, like making the connection that Ayurvedic medicine has been around for thousands of years and these ingredients are a part of that medicine and like practice. But I don't know if it's really gotten to that point yet. I think it's more so the ingredients part. Would you agree?
Yeah, as in, like, do people really get Ayurveda? It's like, oh, I'm
Right, right,
I'm doing Ayurvedic, medicine. I'm really practicing this. I think that's a far stretch from I'm taking a curcumin supplement, which isn't even
right,
turmeric, right? Then we get into the
right.
like, so uh, it's interesting then to have. Uh, like curcumin, which is a subset or an active within turmeric, and then the Ayurvedic practice. Um, I'd say, I think we've done some survey work on this though, right? And more consumers are getting the concept of Ayurveda. Um, but I'd say for the most part, they are not.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah, but it's
So
really
yeah,
interesting, and it's kind of the original personalized nutrition, right? There's the three
yeah, a
dosage
little bit.
forms and then the way they interact. I think it comes out to nine possible types or something, and there's some personalization going on in there that I think is intriguing to consumers if they are doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah, totally. All right, well, that is kind of all we have in terms of the, typical NBJ market sizing charts, but we're not done with market insights quite yet. So the rest of the conversation here with charts associated are going to be some of our consumer survey charts. So this is one of the things I love talking about, but we'll keep kind of, Bill, if you don't mind kind of kicking us off with this conversation,
Oh,
talking
sure,
about
yeah, yeah.
the herbal supplement user insights.
Right. We in this report we did at least two surveys. One of just
Yep.
general consumers. Do you take supplements? Do you take herbal supplements? We asked them a bunch of questions. This was specific uh, to herbal supplement users, and we asked them what the top. Well, like, why are you taking them? And immune support, it comes out on top, but general overall health is right behind that, and then managing stress, improving digestion, sort of gut health next, healthy aging, which is kind of a catch-all in some ways, and then sleep support, hair, skin, and nails. I mean, it's kind of all over the place, but those top ones, it's interesting to see. Immune has probably been the top, on top for most of the time. I think that's kind of the gateway condition for
Hmm.
supplementation for a lot of people. What I think is interesting here, though, is improving general health, and that might speak to the same thing we talked about earlier about combination formulas. There's a generalizing of the potential of these products improving my health versus taking elderberry because it's cold and flu season, and so
Right.
move into general health and away from. I shouldn't say move. We haven't done this survey consistently over years. We'll get longitudinality on these as we do, but yeah, that's an interesting one for me. Just how many people are like, sure, I'll take herbs for general purposes.
Anything that it might help me with,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
right.
hopefully a lot.
Yeah.
But no, and with all these combination formulas, like you said, I mean, you know, formulators and brands really are trying to target more than one condition because that's what consumers, are putting their dollars towards. And I think the stress, the managed stress part is really interesting. But I also think the fact that gut health was up there so high. It's like I think I always love when we talk about like the differences in our like perspectives, Bill, you and I, about like how you've been in the industry obviously much longer than me and like gut health, kind of how it started versus how it is now. Like we just have two totally different perspectives on it. And like I
Yeah.
wouldn't think that, you know, herbs would be a part of gut health, but I feel like historically it's been a key part of gut health, right? For like,
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of with you on that one. I think
oh,
it's
okay.
it's
Wow,
not.
we agree.
Yeah. What do you know? I mean, fiber, probiotics, right, are the low hanging
Yeah,
fruit for
yeah.
gut health, and then, um, but yeah, I think there is increased awareness back to turmeric. People recognize the
Hmm.
value of turmeric in gut inflammation. Not just joint inflammation, and so that's an interesting one too. Another
Yeah,
thing
you
that jumps
bringing
out.
up.
Go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, go for it.
Well, I was just switching to, it's interesting to see stress as number three, sleep as number six, energy as number eight, if I got those right. Those are all kind of um, uh, different facets of the same thing, too.
Mm,
Sleep and stress uh, have some overlap, like in a Venn
sure.
diagram sort of way, and sleep and fatigue and energy have a huge overlap. Those are
Hmm.
two sides of the same coin. So that's just another thing that jumps out at me here as we look at this data.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. I think this one's really interesting, talking about herbal spent on supplements.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because someone just put a question in the chat. Is there a
Oh,
question
good.
or idea of where consumers will put their money as we continue to be in a time of noisy economic uncertainty? And so, a couple things. One, thanks for the questions. Jump in there, jump into the comment field right here in LinkedIn and ask us your questions. Um, I don't think we have an answer to that question, Jennifer. Like the whole economic uncertainty thing, uncertainty is such the key word there. What's happening with tariffs and the price of these botanicals on the marketplace, and then regardless of what happens to the retail price, what happens to my pocketbook and my ability to continue buying herbs? So, um, where will consumers put their money? What we've seen in like during the pandemic and during the economic, what did we call it, the Great Recession in 2008, a lot of consumers were buying more supplements overall. Um, and one of the theories there is that, if actually this is a less expensive way to take care of my health in times of
Mm.
economic uncertainty. So that play out right now, it will, we'll all have to wait and see. But
Yeah, I'll also just add, when we were going through a lot of this research, we asked herbal supplement users, where do you buy your herbal supplements? And, it wasn't, too surprising, Amazon was up there, like I think over half, bought them on Amazon and then in-store mass market retailers, of course, Walmart, Target. But when you look at it by generation, it was almost the opposite of what maybe some would expect or what we see in a lot of other categories. So Gen Z, well, maybe not opposite, but Gen Z was shopping more in-person stores. So they ranked in-person mass market retailer and pharmacy and drug stores, as well as natural food chain stores, so like Whole Foods and Sprouts, higher than any other generation. And then on the flip side of that, Gen X was actually shopping for herbal supplements more on Amazon and on TikTok Shop, which to me was like, and these groups all were equal representation. There was around 200 per group. So that surprised me. And I actually put that in my notes to talk about because I'm like, oh, you'd think that, younger consumers are participating more online, but a trend that
yeah,
we're seeing in the overall natural
it's
product
really,
space is that younger Gen Z consumers are going back to in-store.
yeah, that's really
So,
interesting. It's an interesting trend to see how committed to brick and mortar the Gen Zs are. That'll be, maybe I'm just nostalgic, but that's a trend I hope to really see grow.
mhm,
And don't look
yeah.
at the slide that we have up and try to make sense of what Erica was talking about. Um, but let's talk about this slide now. What are we seeing here, Erica?
Yeah, so this kind of speaks to, the monthly spend and really what we're seeing. So if you combine that 31 and up, so let's call it the pink, some of these colors are a little a little close, but the $31 and up, actually Gen Z says they're spending the most when you're looking at the 31 and up, more than, Gen X and, boomers. Boomers, it kind of makes sense. They're a little more price sensitive. But I just thought it was interesting that they're actually spending more than most other generations.
And even
So,
when you get to that 51 and up, and that's pretty open, that could be
yeah,
$200. But
right.
Gen Z is second and not very far behind millennials. So,
Hmm.
who's likely the lowest earner here,
Right.
uh, is pretty committed to their supplements.
Yeah, and just kind of think about over the next couple years when they do start to make more money, how much more money and buying power that they'll have.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, let's
Go
go
ahead and
on.
move on to this one.
Yeah. Herbal
All
products
right.
purchased in the past 6 months. Yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Okay. Yeah, so this was kind of the one we were talking about in the beginning where we weren't trying to talk about this, but it ended up happening. So this was just when Bill was talking about, we surveyed two different types of consumers. So when we're in our brainstorming research phase of this report, we're like, what do people want to know? Right. And so we kind of figured like, okay, it would be good to know what like the current consumer needs, wants, interests are, right? So those herbal supplement users. And then also potential new consumers. So that's kind of where we got at these general consumers, so general population, not specifically targeting a supplement user or an herbal supplement user, just to see like, you know, are they already partaking in some of these products? What is their interest? What is their trust in this industry? What are they concerned about? So that was super interesting to see. But with this question, we basically just asked, of anyone in the past 6 months, have you purchased any, herbs and botanicals in any of the following forms? And dietary supplements was the highest. I mean, just slightly above herbal tea and coffee, but almost 48% of Gen Pop takes dietary supplements. So that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. That is
But
interesting. And a note here, within the NBJ model, we track all teas as teas, even if they
mhm,
have a supplements facts panel. Erica, you mentioned your yogi
yeah,
detox tea, I think you
yeah,
said. That has a supplement facts panel, but dear listeners, we're going to call that a tea. So all of those herbal teas here are going to be well, this isn't our market sizing data. This is just a survey, but it's just an opportunity to share that data. When we talk about the supplement market, we're not including teas, but consumers sure are. They're drinking herbal teas, coffee here. This must be coffee enhanced with mushrooms or ashwagandha or something, and yeah, and then
and then
see.
I think also we'll probably see, we were talking about this a little bit a couple days ago, but just how Bill and I, predict that probably that herbal enhanced functional beverages and then the foods as well will probably continue to increase over the next couple years when we do that longitudinality, just with this continued increased awareness and interest in these types of products. I mean, there's been so much conversation this year already about functional food and beverage, so and a lot of innovation happening.
Yeah,
So,
there really is. Hey, we have a comment here. It's not even really a question, but commenting on the insight of younger consumers purchasing in store. And Kayla says, um, I wonder if that's in part younger generations maybe based on natural store
mm,
expertise or learning
mm,
about supplement options from store employees. Which is interesting, Kayla, but it's not intuitive to me. Again, I see these digital natives as getting their information from influencers, from, like right here. Why do I need to go into a store and talk to an expert when I can find everything well, and now with AI, I can just ask
right.
ChatGPT. And so,
While
I
you're in the
love
aisle.
yeah. So I love that thought, Kayla, and I don't know. It's not intuitive to me to think that, oh, the younger consumers want to go in and talk to someone. Um, but let's hope that's true. I think talking to people is it's one of my favorite.
Yeah. I actually had that experience the other day. I was in Whole Foods getting a vegan protein powder, and I feel like I'm pretty familiar with all of the product offerings, and I was looking, and then I saw an associate just kind of standing there, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask her what she thinks and kind of see. But I am the type of person, I go into a store, I do not communicate with others, and like that's my goal. And I talked to her, and she gave me a great recommendation, and it was on the sale rack that I wouldn't have seen. And so I saved a bunch of money, met her. She was wonderful. So it was a great experience. So maybe that is happening more than we think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
right,
I don't know.
exactly. Hey, we have a question about Shilajit as well here. That's an interesting one. Um, And I don't know, do we, yeah, and it's not an herbal, it's not a botanical, but it is part of Ayurveda. And I think, I know we're at least anecdotally seeing Shilajit grow in the marketplace. But I don't know particularly if,
Yeah, I actually think, I mean, if most people were at Expo West, there were a ton of products with, I don't know how do you, is it Shilajit? Is
but
that the
yeah, I said
correct way to
Shilajit,
say
I don't know, maybe we need to ask Cooper how to pronounce it.
Yeah, right. I'm like,
Shilajit.
I would be happy to know. Anyway, so yeah, so I do see a lot of it popping up in the marketplace, but it's nowhere near, one of the top 10 or 20 or probably even 50 herbs in terms of market share, so in terms of dollars. So although it probably has a lot of growing left to do, it's still probably quite small. So,
Yeah,
but one to
Shatavari
look out
is
for.
coming up in the
Yep.
market.
Hmm.
Punkat Ali, these we're seeing Amla, definitely
Yeah.
in all of these. So
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, we can go ahead and end with this last consumer survey slide, kind of talking about, top concerns of herbal supplements. So I thought that this one was
I think this one's
particularly
really
interesting.
interesting. And
Yeah.
Sheila Jeet, Cooper says. We asked
Oh,
Cooper.
thank you, Cooper.
Cooper
Appreciate
said,
that.
but he also says he's no expert. So
Ah,
um,
I'm gonna take it as expertise, Cooper. Thank you.
um, all right, so top concerns about herbal supplements. This one's really interesting to me. It really, like if you look at those top four, 29, 28, 27, 27, those are all in survey data the same number. So these are the things people um, are concerned about. And going down the list, conflicting information on benefits, that's confusion, right? Concern about side effects, that's safety. Concerned about interactions with medications, that's safety. Yay, 27% don't have any concerns. Then we get to unpleasant taste and then too expensive. But it's interesting to me that confusion in the marketplace. What is this for? How does it
Mhm.
interact? Like, how often can I take it? Like, and then so confusion and safety really rise to the top when we look at consumer concerns.
Yeah, and I would not have guessed, that consumers are worried about, interactions with medications. Like that was came out of way left field for me. And we put it on there as a response option. And I was like, oh, that seems, random, but important. Like, let's put it on there. And then it came up in the top three. So did that
Yeah.
surprise you? Or does that make sense?
Which one? I was reading the comment. I was reading the
Oh,
question.
the
Interactions with
fact that
medication.
yes, the
Yeah.
medication. Maybe
No,
because
for
like I'm
sure.
younger and not on medication, that doesn't come into play for me. But
Yeah, for sure. That one jumped out too,
mhm,
and such is the game of surveying. When we put in
sure.
responses, but you can see there were a ton of responses. It's hardly a leading question, and still, right there, almost as much as anything else, people are concerned about interactions with medications, and it's such a valid concern, right? I mean, I find myself guilty as a consumer for 35 years of these products. I have this attitude. We also asked questions about do you think these are safer than OTCs and pharmaceutical drugs? And fairly overwhelmingly, people do think these are safer. We asked, do you turn to herbs first or OTC first or prescription drugs? And I think, but I think supplements came out ahead on those questions too. And it's easy to think, well, whatever, these things are completely safe. But more and more, I think consumers are thinking, well, wait, I'm taking 16 different herbs and I'm taking medication. So
Yeah.
i- is it safe?
Yeah. And when you look at, again, because I like looking at the generational insights, when you look at this, by age cohort, it's actually a lot of Gen Z are most concerned about ethical concerns and sourcing way like almost double the amount than even millennials or Gen Z or sorry, Gen X and boomers. So like that's also something that I think, brands and people can keep in mind too of like when they're doing, advertising or education, like there is a concern there about where they're getting their ingredients from and the
Yeah.
ethical sourcing piece to it. So,
I'd see one more question in here, and we're almost out of time. So thanks for the engagement. Thanks for the questions.
yeah.
Concerns, consumer concern about ashwagandha, and I would say I haven't seen a lot of that concern. So I think what we're referring to here is the European restrictions on ashwagandha and claims made
Mm,
there and some of the safety concerns there. I had the opportunity to share some of this data at ICSB last month, International Conference on the Science of Botanicals. Saw you there, Sarah. That was fun. Um, and what a great conference that is. A bunch of scientists, FDA people, and industry people. Way fewer industry people, though, than we're used to at our own events. And so it's a really interesting group. There's a pretty in-depth presentation on some of the research
mm.
being done to check out those concerns about ashwagandha. I don't think those concerns have really hit the U.S. market that much, and I don't know that U.S. consumers are that hesitant about ashwagandha as they may be in Europe. But perhaps I'm mistaken on that. But that's my response to that question. So, and here's the report. There it is. Look at that. Look, there's a QR code.
Look how
Uh,
beautiful it is.
That's exactly. And 10 points to anyone who can list left to right, top to bottom, every botanical in that tree.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so
I think that's all the time we got. I
I think
think
that's
we're
it. I
even
think
a
we're
little bit
overtime.
over.
If you're still
Yeah.
here, thanks for hanging in a minute late. And
Yeah.
that was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
this was fun.
Okay.
Thanks for
Cheers.
chatting. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.